you see something that is...
Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Audible.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, thank you. Very good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Dr. Himakshi Sharma. On behalf of DDH training team and Director CSR NACE, Dr. GN Sastri, we welcome you all to today's question answer session. So today we have in our expert panel Dr. Arjun Ray, Dr. Giri Pillai, and Dr. Parthasarthi, Dr. Anshu Bharadwaj. So I request all the participants, when you put your questions, you please write your email. Based on the availability of the expert, we will answer the question in the platform, or we will answer your question in DDH training program website. Thank you. We have few questions from previous session. Dr. Arjun?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, sir, in your session, there are few questions that time we couldn't put in front of you. So now we would like to take. Okay, sir.
Sure.
So first question was, is there any book which we could follow for the basics of using these softwares?
Okay. So I presented, let me recall. So I presented quite a few different softwares,
Yes.
and I think there's not a single unified book. If one wants to learn about homology modeling and stuff, that can be done from Arthur Less' book on bioinformatics. That's a really good book. I would strongly suggest. But I think what I had presented in my talk was a conglomeration of tools which are popularly used by researchers. So it's not exactly one place would someone would find.
Okay, thank you, sir. So one student asked, can you please brief about CASP for a beginner?
Okay, so the CASP program, if I can share what the basic understanding of this is that it is a technically not a competition. The full form is critical assessment of protein structure prediction. It's where every 2 years, all the people who work on protein structure prediction field, they come together with their methods, and we have to submit our methods in a local platform. And the organizers of this CASP, they actually contact a lot of crystal structure people and ask them to give them the crystal structures without and holding the structures to be published for 3 months. I think it's 3 months or 2 months. So technically, it becomes a blind set which is nowhere available. The purpose of this is that since they have now the crystal structures, they know what is the true structure of those proteins. Now, there are several categories on which CASP runs. One is structure prediction, one is ab initio, so hard targets, one is model quality assessment. Then it is the sequence is given to all the participants, and we all have to predict the structure. And finally, when the CASP ends, they release those crystal structures and show that you predicted this, and this was the true actual crystal. So this becomes a very good blind test, and every 2 years, that kind of assesses what's the status of the field. So this is the essence of the whole CASP experiment. I think Wikipedia jokingly says that it's the world championship of structure prediction field, something like that. I hope that
Thank you.
makes it clear. Yeah.
Sir, one question I would like to take. It is for all of you. It is a general question. Um, practical. What is this? How practical? How practical the results of computation with respect to the development of new molecule will reach new molecule reaching clinical trials?
Okay, so basically, I think that is more asking towards how reliable would in silico studies be in achieving this goal that we are trying to do here. Um, I think first, Professor Giri should go ahead. He's a foremost expert in a lot of drug trial stuff. But from my end, I can tell you from my experience, we constantly work with all these in silico techniques, and we get really good experimental, close to experimental results. So there's no reason to believe that the in silico techniques that we have available are anywhere inferior. Now, the usability of these techniques actually lies the results are going to lie solely towards how well you understand the problem limitations and how well you implement it. As much as in silico may be um, somewhat easier to handle with, but it is also the people who use it, their sensibility towards how critically they analyze and understand what they're trying to do. So the closeness towards reality results are going to be solely dependent on the people who use it. But I think Dr. Giri could answer it a lot better.
Hi, Dr. Arjun. You rightly said this is Giri this side. A good synergistic between the human expertise can only help the in silico tools to show wonders. Just based on numbers, we cannot always come to a conclusion. So I used to tell that, and most of us already know that most of the screening process is to help us to remove the non-confident molecules from our the whole big data set, so that we work with more confidence, and we wanted to do not want to avoid any opportunities. Opportunities means chance of success. So I know it's a very vague kind of explanation, because it varies from different techniques that you're going to consider. For example, if you're going for docking, you make a funnel. You start with a large data set and you wanted to bring it down, considering many criteria. It's not only about scoring. It's not only about energy. There are many more criteria that to be considered. And later, when you're thinking about pharmacokinetics of ADME or toxicity, we are looking for an optimal balance of properties. It is not that my compound should be non-toxic only. It should be absorbable. It should be distributable, and many more, and also pro-drug strategy. So it's a combination of multiple properties brought together, but to get a balance of all properties is mostly impossible. So that's why we add it optimal balance. Now, who to decide what is optimal balance? As you rightly said, it is a person who is going to work on that particular problem statement or objective, what he wanted to achieve, or what kind of chemotypes they are going to work on to go to the reality, and what kind of data that they have considered in silico studies. Let's say proteins, whether it is bioavailable, whether it is druggable, or the models are available or not when you're going for in silico or in vivo studies. That kind of scaling or transition understanding is required. So a connection between in silico and in vivo or in vitro understanding is better, so that you can always scale it from in silico to wet lab studies. That is my very brief opinion about that particular question.
May I pitch in here for it?
Please, madam.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I think what Dr. Ray and Dr. Giri have raised are very critical points, but it is just for the benefit of the wider community. When we say it's a computational prediction and it needs to be validated, I think that understanding has to be more clear, because when we go from prediction to in vitro, that again, sometimes things fail, but when we go from in vitro to in vivo, the failure rate doesn't change much. And then from when we go from animal studies to human, because mouse or dog is not human, the chances of failure is again very high. So we are actually predicting at each stage. It's only a matter of fact that the first stage we use computational methods to say that it's a prediction, but we are predicting and extrapolating at every stage as we move to clinical trials. And the whole point here is, the better we understand the uh, organism, how it functions, the better we can address these questions. Because as Giri rightly pointed out, that balancing so many properties of a specific drug into a human body is extremely difficult. So the more we understand, and given that we have huge amount of data sets now, make it possible. So I think computational methods also offer us the unprecedented opportunity to look at these huge data sets and make more sense out of it, and come to something which is more workable, like a more workable set, which is not possible by most of the wet lab techniques so far. So there are pros and cons of using each method. And as I said in one of my earlier talks, you have a nail and a hammer. Now it depends on what kind of an architecture you want to bring out of it, like what sculpture you want to make. But basic understanding of the system is very critical at each stage of drug discovery and development.
Thank you, ma'am. We have few more question. One student is asking how we can get the license for using a particular softwares about which expert has told in last lectures. So this she didn't mention any particular software. In general, she is asking how to get the license for that particular software.
So I'll just clarify that any software that I have shown and mentioned as a tool, they're all freely available. And I think most of the cases, even if they require a license, you just need to email them and they send the license code. So it's all freely available.
Thank you, sir.
And the ones which are paid, a large number of companies and private partners have come forward to offer free licenses for the hackathon participants. So when you register for the event and you identify a problem statement, then you need any of those applications, you will be given a list very shortly. Then the companies will either directly send you the license, or we can offer you license through the high performance computing resources.
Thank you, ma'am. Another question is how can we use computational methodologies for formulation development?
If I can take this up, this is Giri here. So, when coming to formulation development, there are tools available. So, for example, when you wanted to go with the understanding of each component of the mixture, what should be the stoichiometry? What should be the thermodynamic properties, which includes solubility, vapor pressure, and even including pK and other studies. So one example that I can bring up is co-crystal screening. So co-crystal screening means which will be the co-crystal or the excipient going good with API formulation. So this is all related again to statistical thermodynamics. One. Second, you can do DFT calculations and other membrane studies, which again comes with molecular dynamics, both in implicit as well as explicit condition. So these are the options available, but I'm not sure whether during this hackathon we do have any access to those tools. Preferably, as I said, more of into statistical thermodynamics. I don't want to go much deeper there, but this is what we can do. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, it's a very basic question one student is asking. How to find active site for docking?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
How do I find active site for docking?
Okay, that's actually a wide question. So one is, of course, going back to the literature, because it's better not to reinvent the wheel. People have studied it, active sites through various means. If it happens to be that you have no idea of the active site, then there is something which is called blind docking. And what in essence it means, blind docking means you encapsulate the whole protein in your docking boundary, and you're searching for where you're getting the best binding poses. Once you have the top 5 or top 10 poses, then you start searching the literature and understanding the binding site's properties, where it binds, what is the environment like. So, the first thing I would suggest anyone before they go into the docking is to do a little bit of research, literature survey, because active sites, not necessarily just because you had a good binding at a position, would result in that being the active site. So it would help that way. But there's no direct way you would know unless you do an experimental validation to see if that regulates the protein activity or not.
Thank
If
you,
I
sir.
may, want to just to add it to Dr. Arjun. What he rightly said is one more thing that we have to consider when softwares are going to predict any of the pockets, let's say for docking, it's more of a geometry based. They don't consider anything related to biochemical or mechanism. So, as a user, we need to understand what are the key amino acids on that particular functional site, whether it is going to inhibit or going to stimulate that particular mechanism. So, by that understanding, only we can say the software predicted pocket and those key amino acid residue, as Dr. Arjun rightly said, from literature as well as from bioinformatics analysis, you will be able to understand what are the key residues from sequence analysis. There are plenty of tools available for that. So, a combination of all these data put together, you come to a conclusion. Yeah, this is my active site. These are my key residues. This is my volume of the particular pocket where I have to make my drug molecules or ligand molecules to dock, but I ensure that those key amino acids have those interaction. But later, we need to also able to tell the story that what that key interactions are going to affect, or what will be the mechanism that is going to change by the interactions with those key amino acids. So that is my take on the active site.
Um, just to add, and I think Dr. Giri beautifully explained this. Uh, just to simplify, if one could imagine that a protein A is going to bind to something, protein B, one could actually do is instead of looking at the drug, first look at A and B's interaction, and then look if there's a drug molecule which could sit at the interface, which could possibly perhaps be interacting and possibly hindered this interaction. Similarly, if it's an active site, the protein, most probably the ones that are dealt in the problem statement, are now quite well characterized. So in that sense, one could actually look into the literature of how the protein activity works and what are the key residues involved in that. So if you have that understanding, then looking into what could be what drug molecule would be sitting there with a significant binding energy and all the other criteria, like Dr. Giri said, that could give you a potential hit towards a possible active site hindrance or activation.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, one student is asking, can we have some virtual hands-on experience on chemometrics-based optimization studies which are vital in drug discovery processes?
I think Dr. Giri would be the best person to answer this.
Sorry, yeah. Hi. Chemometrics, of course, Professor Kunal Roy and myself, as well as will be bringing up a few more tools that will be able to help you with the chemometrics, where it talks about the statistics as well as the chem informatics, including QSAR studies. So there are free tools available, which is again from DTC Lab, PADL, and also on the MLR and statistical, including machine learning methods. So we will be upcoming with those practical sessions in the coming weeks. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, sir. Next question we have, how to perform mutagenesis and possible mutation that can be studied from the in silico method with respect to a lead molecule.
So, mutagenesis, I'm guessing the person who has asked this question is talking from the receptor point of view, because I think we are not dealing with biomolecules or peptides yet in this drug discovery hackathon. So, from a receptor point of view, if you're doing any mutagenesis, always understand that when you take out an amino acid and insert a new amino acid, the local environment changes. Now, that local environment change could also be resulting in a global change also. So it's very critical that you minimize the structure. And there are plenty of tools available to minimize. In certain cases, I would even say doing a very short MD simulation run to equilibrate the structure, because you would want that residue to now be comfortably sitting with its environment and all the neighboring residues adjusting to it. So that's the first thing one has to take into account. Another thing is to deal with the rotamers, but if you're mutating it using any standard tool, you could do it even with Pymol, Chimera, all the softwares can do it. Do it on the structural level, in the crystal structure or the structure that you're taking, in the native one, and do compare at least a little bit how much has your structure deviated, because that deviation could also be resulting in your pocket. If it's near the pocket or in the pocket, it could be actually affecting how your pocket size and characteristics are going to change. So these are the two things I could think of from a receptor point of view. I hope that mutagenesis, the person meant, was from the receptor point of view.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, from when the registration for CDAC drug discovery tool room will start, as because last week in workshop it was mentioned that the link will available in my government, but still it is not showing. So many students are asking this question. If Dr. Anshu can speak about this.
Yes, so primarily the workflow is this, that you need to first register for the drug discovery hackathon, and the registration for the CDAC tool room follows after that, because these are high performance computing resources. Till the time we make sure that anybody who is asking for an account on those servers and know what they are going to use it for, we cannot generate those accounts for all of the participating members. Once we are sure that you have identified your problem statement and you have identified what you're going to do on the high performance computing machines, then your account will be created. So the current bottleneck is the registrations at MyGov has to start, and then you will see the registration link to the CDAC machines. So this is a two-step process. You may not get a direct registration link to the virtual tool room.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope this will be very much clear to the participant. One question most of the students are asking, whether we have to work individually or we have to form team for drug discovery hackathon. What is the maximum number in each team? If Papri ma'am can answer, it would be great.
Yeah, go ahead. See, the Abhay Gire, who is the convener for the Drug Discovery Hackathon, actually talked about this in his YouTube video. You may refer to that. And just to take what he said that day was that you are encouraged to participate in teams, and the team size is approximately 8 members. But I would recommend you to go back and listen to his first talk about the hackathon. He has in details talked about the different rules and guidelines for participating in the hackathon. And Giri, I think wanted to say something. Giri, please come on board.
No, absolutely what you said, the same thing. Because I would recommend everyone to go and watch that in Abhay Jaire's YouTube channel. He has very well explained. In that 8 groups, you can work individually also, but in a team, maximum is 8, where you can have 2 mentors. If you have a mentor from industry, that is also good. Nothing like mandatory, but please watch the video so that you will get much more information from there.
Hi everyone, this is Papri. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Perfectly
audible. Yeah. So just in the same line in Dr. Anshu and Dr. Giri, they clearly said it. So I just reiterate that for team, what Dr. Giri said, there are total up to 8 and 6 participants and 2 mentors. And as he said, 1 mentor recommended from industry but not mandatory. But 2 mentors and 6 participants will be the team size. So teams will apply, that is 1. And the previous question was about registration form. That time I couldn't communicate for some internet issue. So the thing is, this Monday, last Monday, 20th of July, MyGov initially said they will make the registration form live, which is the basic registration form. But they have some technical glitches which they are working on right now. They need some more time. So whenever that is up, they can register. We will let everybody know. And then as Dr. Anshu mentioned, it will gradually take you to the CDAC registration also.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Next question we have, on which basis we can select protein from protein data bank for docking, because many PDB IDs are given for the same protein.
That's actually a very good question. So there are several factors on which one chooses a structure. The first biggest thing is the coverage. you would want your PDB to have the maximum coverage. So if your amino acid sequence natively is 100, you would want crystal structures which max can cover the maximum up till 100. So taking those crystal structures. The next one looks for is the resolution at which it is resolved. So you will see in the PDB there are numbers given like 3.2 angstrom, 1.2 angstrom. So the lower the resolution, the clearer are the side chain and all the details, which is going to be very important if you, especially if you don't do MD simulation and take the crystal structure for directly for docking. These arrangements in the most detailed clarity will help for better screening. Um, Third, I would say is, of course, one has to see is that the crystal structure that you're taking, is it actually co-crystallized with another protein? What do I mean by co-crystallization is that sometimes you will see that a protein A is actually bound to protein B, and your interest of protein is protein A. But sometimes during this pull down kind of experiments, protein A and protein B interaction actually leads to a conformational change. So you would again require to relax the protein A structure away when you take away the protein B. So preferably a crystal which is not co-crystallized with anything else. So majorly these are the few things that one takes into account when choosing which PDB to go for. Rest, I think, as one encounters problems, I think we are all going to be there for answering the specific solutions.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, could you please elaborate on how to develop a plan and execute it? I'm having issues with linking various methods and planning a course of action.
I think here we actually have to refrain from that, because the whole idea is that every participant and every participating group brings out their own creative solution, because it is not about selecting and defining a path. Sometimes going offbeat from the path may lead to better results than the traditional path. So I would strongly urge to explore, to understand, and to discover, rather than following anything that we suggest.
Thank you, sir.
I think Dr. Giri and Dr. Anshu, they should have an opinion on this also.
Dr. Arjun, I completely agree with you. We are doing a hackathon, so it's more of challenging. So it is some might go for A to B, others might go for B to A, but ultimately we are looking for promising data out of it. So being it is challenging, they have to come up with innovation. Let them also come up with their creativity on the planning, which method they have to combine together, which one to prioritize. There are uncertainties will be there in the data. They have to come across to handle the large collection of data that they have to to conclude which will be the top percentage of compounds that they wanted to report. So you rightly said it. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. If anyone would like to add. So next question we have. There are a lot of developments going on in around deep learning and its application in drug discovery. Can we visualize the features present in the last layer from where the final decision is coming out? What are your viewpoints?
So, sorry, I'm not an expert there, but still wanted to comment. When you're going for deep learning, ensure that you have good means thousands of data for you to train the model. So I'm not too much expert there. So I'm sorry from that side.
So the way I would like to define, I have some expert with these techniques. So deep learning, a lot of people treat deep learning as a black box method. And one thing always to remember in black box methods are garbage in, garbage out. So featureizing your molecules in as many ways possible. In that sense, if the question is what should be the features and the last layer and stuff, I think I would suggest that there are plenty of papers, research papers recently on using deep learning and AI on drug space. Please go and read them. You will see what features have been extracted and used to sample the data points. Along with that, keep an open mind that you may actually add more features from your own understanding, and don't take the uh, paper's features as the gospel truth. So be comfortable trying out, taking away features, adding new features, and constantly check the performance. So have your data set in the proper machine learning fashion where you have a five-fold validation, you are dividing your sets, you know your true positives and true negatives, and do your ROC curves trying to find out what is fitting the best. But without going through the whole methodology of machine learning, I would only suggest is read, and read, because a lot of people are doing it. It may actually give you new ideas.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, what is your take on designing new features, descriptor or fingerprints to unveil complex relationship for any given data while building QSAR models?
I think Dr. Giri is the expert with QSRs.
Yeah, myself here, but I wanted to see what is Dr. Parthasarathi also. I think he's also online. Uh, he also does a lot more on QSR. I'll just comment on from my side. Yeah, we always want relevant molecular descriptors. It is not statistical parameter getting match is not a QSR model. So we want also relevance, the science of relevance. That's where we talk about the physical meaning of your descriptor. How can you correlate with the activity that you're trying to model? So ensure that you can bring in your own descriptors or features, or manually calculated or derived. It can be anything, but it should have a physical meaning, significance to your activity that you're going to model for the QSR. So that is my comment from that side.
Thank you, sir. One question for the MD simulation of drug protein complex, how can we select appropriate force field as there are several number of force fields are available?
Uh, so I think in the problem statements, if it is not mentioned, the force field, you can take any of the new force fields that are being used. You can use Charm 36, Amber, whichever one, Gromos, because the force field progression right now is more towards the quantum energy calculations and a lot to do with lipids and stuff. So I think for usability purposes, for protein ligand interaction, any of the newer um, versions of all these force fields would result in basically the same.
Yeah. Just to add on to Dr. Arjun's comments, there is an online tool called Lip Pargen. So, Lig Pargen, LIG. So that is a particular web server which will be able to create the topology files and also relevant supporting files for all the molecular docking engines. For example, NAMD, AMBER, GROMACS, Desmond and all. So when you're working with protein ligand complexes, always generating the topology files as well as supporting files for ligand is always a challenge. So most of the time in GROMACS we try to go with the OPLS or AMBER, as Dr. Arjun mentioned, including CHARMM. So this is a very recent tool which supports all the molecular docking engine formats. So this is very trivial. I hope you will be able to use this tool to generate the topology files or the supporting files for the ligand. Now coming to force field, it is again as last previous question as Dr. Arjun mentioned, you have to read and understand what is the coverage of a specific force field. And if your system is containing a special atom like metal atom or a heavy atom, then you have to see whether that particular force field you're going to choose has a coverage on that. If it does not have a coverage, you will have errors coming up when you're doing the minimization program step. So to ensure that what is your system, what are the kind of atoms you have or elements, and whether your particular choice of force field is going to cover that or not. Let it be amber, let it be charm, let it be gromos, let it be OPLS, let it be any type. There are variants also. There is a latest version of charm also 36, which is released in March. So anything you choose, ensure that system elements are covered. So you have to read about it to understand which will be the appropriate force field that could be used for the complex. That's all from me.
Uh, uh, Beautifully said again, Dr. Giri. I think a lot of these force field questions are going to be solved when Dr. Durba gives her presentation. And I think uh, one could wait till getting more understanding of force fields, how they're designed, how these differences are, and what Dr. Giri talked about specific heavy atoms. Why would it differ? Why does he suggest that there would be certain parameterization issues? So do attend Dr. Durba's talk regarding all these questions.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, what is the significance of delta G value in docking? Is there any optimum value have it having it? I request Dr. Parthasarthi to share his view on it. Sir.
Okay, I am here. My name is Prasad Bhartam. I would like to answer this question.
Okay, sir. Sure, sir. Please.
See, docking score is not the same as delta G. Delta G is the energy released when a small compound interacts with a macromolecule. Enzyme substrate interaction or enzyme inhibitor interaction does release some amount of energy. That is delta G, that is experimentally observable property. When we do molecular docking, we do not get the delta G value. We get a score value which is indirectly representing the delta G value. So we should stick, whenever we talk about docking, we should not worry about the word delta G. That is physical chemistry experiment gives that. Delta G comes from calorimetric experiments. That is not what we are referring here. We are only referring to docking score. Docking scores are many varieties. Every docking algorithm, every docking software provides you several chemical scoring functions. You may choose any one of them. For example, in Glide, there is a scoring function called G score. We can use that. or maybe there is another scoring function called chem score or EMF score. So those things can be done. But then how to determine whether a particular docking was really successful or not? First, we have got to dock a standard molecule. Initially, before we virtual screen or before we perform our research, we should start by docking the standard molecule which is supposed to act on that, or at least which is some kind of reference we have got, which indicates that there is an interaction between this small molecule and the same macromolecule. First, we should gain experience to know whether our docking algorithm is performing right or wrong. So that is called initial redocking of the ligand in the cavity, or to prepare ourselves to, to take up the next stage of research. So then we get a score value. If suppose I have the remdesivir as the ligand, but it is not the active molecule, the metabolite 4 of remdesivir is the most active compound. So I will have to find out how metabolite 4 of remdesivir is docking in the target. What is the target? We know the target, that is RM, RP something. Okay, we take the 3D structure of the RM RP3 enzyme and we dock the remdesivir triphosphate, that metabolite 4, and then find out the interactions and then estimate the docking score and keep that ready reference as ready reference for our work in future. Then we start docking many ligands in the same cavity. If I have a compound which is showing a better score than that of that metabolite 4, then I can go ahead and declare that there is a possibility that newly identified docking, the newly identified compounds are having, say, better docking score. Then we have to compare docking pose. Then we have to compare the interactions. Then we have to understand the biology. Then we go to the chemistry. Then everything will start. Okay, so docking score of a standard compound should be kept for our ready reference. Um, some of the problem statements provided this kind of a particular cutoff value using G score, using glide. If you do docking using this particular algorithm, when you follow, the score should be minus 7.6. Like that, a suggestion has been given to you. That can be taken as a ready reference for yourself.
Thank you, sir, for your nice explanation. Sir, we have one question for you from your previous lecture. That is, uh, why cisplatin binds with DNA? Why not with RNA?
Okay, one of the most important requirements for cisplatin to bind is that it should have two guanines adjacent to each other. Two guanines adjacent to each other is practical found in the case of DNA. And also in the case of RNA, there is no proof that cisplatin is not binding to RNA. Whenever there is two bases, DNA bases, which are containing the guanine moiety, they are adjacent to each other, cisplatin would very comfortably bind there. But even if it is bound, it may not necessarily produce the therapeutic effect, because in RNA there is no specific uh, uh, structural feature which is going to be disturbed by the after binding with the cisplatin. If cisplatin is bound with any sequence, any nucleic acid sequence, if it is not disturbing the structure of the DNA, what is the point? Okay, if it is binding, After binding, if it is disturbing the 3D structure of the DNA, that means that the double helical arrangement is opened up, and then the double helical arrangement is completely bent, and then corresponding protein generation, next stage, during the transcription and translation. During that, if a particular protein formation is disturbed, then the effect is realized. So the only thing, the cisplatin may be binding to RNA, may be binding to into any protein, no, any nucleic acid sequence. But if it is not producing the next step, if that is not if that particular binding has nothing to do with the transcription and translation, there is no anti-cancer effect, right? So it is observed with when two guanines side by side are present in DNA, there is a therapeutic influence. In other bindings, there is no therapeutic influence. That is why we don't talk about it. Okay. I hope this helps.
Thank you, sir. Next question. Can one team have more than one problem statement? Can mentors be common for two teams? What is the minimum number of team members? Is it not mentioned in Dr. Abhay Jere's video?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Okay, ma'am.
Himakshi?
Can one team have more than one problem statement? This
Yes.
is one question.
Yes, they can.
Okay. And next is, can mentors be common for two teams?
That I have to check, but it's not recommended. The reason being, if both of the teams are selected for two different problem statements, there could be a problem if the mentor is common, but I can still double check it and get back to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Another is, what is the minimum number of team members?
There is no minimum or maximum. It's 6. It's fixed number. 6 team members. I mean participants plus 2 mentors for each team.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Next question is, sir, this is for Bharathar, sir. Sir, how to relate the change in energy when compound interacts with target protein? Can we predict inhibitors or activity inducer by this?
See, when we are studying interactions, we estimate the score. That is nothing but the overall energy due to all possible interactions between the small molecule and macromolecule. That is a reflection of the energy. That is not energy, but it is indirectly representing the energy parameter. We use many energy related formulae to estimate that value. That value is more about the strength of the interaction between the macromolecule and the small molecule. It does not tell you whether it is inhibitor, whether it is activator, whether it is a promoter, whether it is a transporter. It does not tell you the biology. So from the computational result, we have to efficiently integrate the existing knowledge, and thus we need to make extrapolations. These extrapolations, suppose I have, earlier we discussed M4 is binding to RD-RM enzyme, okay? So this is the specific score. That is an inhibitor. My molecule is binding in the same cavity and it is showing the similar interactions and it is showing better interactions. That is probably because of that, my molecule is also going to act like an inhibitor. This is an extrapolation. There is no guarantee that it is going to be an inhibitor, but it is some kind of a artistic way we are trying to extrapolate from one result to another result. That extrapolation is 99.99% correct extrapolation. But I cannot confirm that this is indeed inhibiting. I cannot do that. Okay, so whether it is agonist versus antagonist, whether it is substrate versus inhibitor, we will not be able to confidently comment on that. We are only extrapolating. Okay, those extrapolations are 99% coming out to be correct. So that is okay. We do not want to more clearly pinpoint exactly what is the effect there. Is that answering or something more is?
Thank you, sir. There is one question related to MD simulation. Is it necessary to conduct MMPBSA and MAGBSA after MD simulation? Uh, what is your viewpoint on optimum value of RMSD, RMSF, RG, and hydrogen bond analysis?
Okay. Here, there are no standard cutoff values. Okay. So we learn from the standard molecule. We learn after doing the work. For example, the MMG, PBSA, GBSA, we want to do because we want to compare the binding free energy. For example, molecular docking gives only scores, whereas molecular dynamics method, after performing MMGBSA analysis, that provides statistically significant binding free energy value. That value can be it is most close to the experimental value in terms of defining what is a delta G0, because it also includes the component of delta S in it. In docking score, there is no delta S component. In dynamics, there is a possibility of having the delta S component. Delta G is equal to, what is it? Delta H minus T delta S. That delta S component is not there in docking. Okay, it is not there even in quantum chemistry. It is not there in QSAR. It is there only during molecular dynamical analysis. But we have to choose this particular option. If we don't, it takes a lot of time to estimate the delta S values also. Okay, so delta G0 estimation using MMPBSA, MMGBSA is important. It takes a lot of time. So we want to prioritize a few compounds, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 maximum, before we go for that additional binding free energy. But at that point also, we need a standard value. If my standard value of my molecule M4 is say minus 34 kilocalories per mole, if after calculating that is coming after calculating MMPBSA, and then using the same method, if a new molecule is giving a better binding free energy, that language we can use in dynamics, better binding free energy, that is minus 34 versus minus 37. My molecule is showing minus 37. I can very safely declare that my molecule is behaving as expected under the macromolecular environment, and thus my molecule has the ability to show the necessary inhibitory property. So it is better to do the things at the end, but we cannot do for every molecule which we are using in virtual screening. In virtual screening, we are starting with billions of compounds, and finally we choose 10 compounds using molecular docking. From those 10 also, we have to make a choice maximum 3 for which I will do MMPBSC analysis. MMPBSC analysis is not a part of virtual screening exercise. Okay. I think there is some other part of the question remaining. What is the next part? That is RMSD values. Are there any
Yes.
standard cutoff values?
Yes,
See,
yes.
generally RMSD is not an indicator of any biological activity. RMSD is only going to tell whether the simulation is going properly or not, whether the mathematical model is behaving properly, is it going in the mathematics is right going in the right direction to hand while it is handling the macromolecules. Okay, so RMSD plus or minus 1 is the best. So we need to wait to that particular point. We need to continue the molecular dynamic simulations up to that point for at least 10 nanoseconds continuously. There is a plus or minus 1 angstrom RMSD is observed when we prepare the trajectories. Okay, so but some people suggest plus or minus 2 is also okay. So that is a call that the actual scientist has to take while performing the work. Similarly, for energy values, there is no cutoff value. During the trajectory, whatever trajectories we prepare, there is no cutoff values that we can define. Those are all only to define and appreciate that the molecular dynamics exercise is giving me a stable structure for a minimum period of 10 nanoseconds during the simulation. Okay, I think that will help.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, for building a QSAR model, what are the criteria that we have to consider while selecting training set of molecules?
That is a very standard definition is there. First of all the molecules which we are choosing as a part of training set as well as the test set, together they should be acting on a particular single macromolecule. Also, the data should have been obtained using a single biological assay. Suppose from Mohali, I perform an experiment using biological assay number 1, and from Guwahati, somebody prepares the same enzyme with a different biological assay. He gives a list of IC50 values. I should not combine these two. Combining this is a big blunder. So QSR should be done on a set of molecules for which biological data is available from a specific well-defined biochemical assay, and the same biochemical assay may be utilized in publishing 3-4 papers. Maybe same scientist from the same lab published 4 papers using the same biological assay. I can combine all the data from all the molecular data from those 4 papers. That is okay. But even if same biological assay is used by a set of scientists from Mohali and another set of scientists from Guwahati, I can still combine that data because the IC50 value estimation has followed a particular standard approach. But if there is no standard approach, X scientist is reporting his own way biological parameters, Y is reporting his own way, Z is reporting his own way, and I will combine all this data. That is a big blunder. We should not combine. That will be statistically giving you many errors, and that will give a result, no doubt. QSR may give you, statistics will give you the result, but that is not supposed to be interpreted towards drug discovery work. So that is a big blunder. Then one more thing in QSAR, all the chemical species should have a particular chemical parameter maintained. For example, all of them are having quinoxilone derivatives. Suppose all are having, for example, all are labeled as quinoline derivatives. All are thiazolidine dione derivatives. That is okay. But suppose I say something is arginine derivative, another is phenylalanine derivative. If I combine these two for QSAR analysis, that is going to give absolutely wrong QSAR result. So QSAR person should be very, very careful in choosing the data set. So what is the minimum criterion? All the compounds chosen should be acting at one particular macromolecule. The IC50 values or the LD50 values or the ED50 values or any of the parameter which is standardly defined using a single biochemical assay should be utilized. That is point number 2. Point number 3 is that all the chemicals chosen should have at least one chemical functional group common so that they can be called as some kind of a particular chemical derivatives. In that context, QSAR will help. Then we will have to divide molecules into training set and test set and then prediction set. All those things will follow after that. I hope this helps.
Thank you, sir. Next question we have, what is the best tool to prepare the large database of ligands for virtual screening?
Well, I can answer this question. I am answering many, so maybe others will like to answer this.
Professor Bharadam, please go ahead. Then we will add on if there is anything. Please.
Okay. There are many ways. There are many ways of preparing our data banks. We may choose the existing data banks, maybe Zinc data bank or MPDS data bank, or many data banks are available. That is existing data banks. Other than that, we can prepare our own data bank. I presume that this particular question is about how to prepare virtual data banks. I am answering on that presumption. Suppose if I have to generate my own virtual data bank, I will have to have some kind of a chemical logic behind it. If I have that chemical logic, my data bank, one of the logics can be that the pharmacophore, which is essential, it should be maintained. There are set of pharmacophore features. Suppose there is a set of hydrogen bond at a distance of 4 angstrom, another hydrogen bond, another hydrogen bond at another 4 angstrom distance. Suppose this is a pharmacophore map, pharmacophore. This has to be maintained when I am preparing my virtual data bank. All the molecules in my data bank should maintain that minimum criteria. On the other hand, there may be another hypothesis that I should have this functional group compulsory. For example, carboxylic acid group is compulsory in all my data bank, every molecule in my data bank. Or quinoline moiety is compulsory for all molecules in my. That is actually preparing virtual derivatives of a particular chemical species. So that is another way of preparing. So there are many ways of preparing virtual databases. So these are all defined in the textbooks by there are many chemoinformatics textbooks are available. These methodologies are all well defined in chemoinformatics databases, chemoinformatics textbooks. It is better to refer them. I have given 2 examples here.
Okay, this is Giri this side. Just to add on, as part of the second part of the question, as he already wonderfully explained about the data sets and the data bank. When you're regarding to the tool, for the large data set, there might be charged molecules, salt forms, many more will be there. So when you're coming to docking, you can use any tools for this hackathon program. It's not that you have to dedicate it to only one specific tool. It can be any tool. You have to mention which tool you have used when you're submitting. So coming to the data preparation, there's a software called as Data Warrior. So Data Warrior also helps you for desalting and you have to consider, you have to do it very carefully, and you can also filter molecules based on the criteria, keeping which substructure you wanted to have. As Professor Vardhan rightly said, you're very specifically looking forward to a specific chemical series or chemotype, so you want to maintain that. So you can do a substructure search within that to filter them out, or filter based on molecular weight, or many more. So Data Warrior is a freely available tool that can be used for data preparation. Otherwise, you can use Nine. Nine has many nodes like RDKit, Indigo, and few more others which are also open source, that can also help you to prepare your data. So preparation of a data includes 2D to 3D conversion also. So when you're converting to 2D to 3D, you can use whether it is MMFF4 or MM3 or MMX kind of force fields you want to use for optimization. Those things also can be taken care. Otherwise, if you are very happy with OpenBabel also has the feature for filtering out, but a little bit more of scripting or things are required. So that is to answer the second part of this question.
I have to tell everybody one more point. It is not with reference to this question alone. It is with reference to the entire work that we are going to do under the drug discovery hackathon. When we are ready to generate 3D structure from a 2D structure, there is every possibility of errors getting incorporated, because the 3D structure generated, which is the automated 2D to 3D structure software across the board, all of them are filled with errors. They make blunders. We have to be very careful. We have to be patient enough. We should be having sufficient time allotted to look at the 3D structures carefully. If we don't pay attention to that part, what we give is nothing but junk to the next stage of the research. After converting from 2D to 3D, there are many software which are online, which convert it to 3D structure of a glucose, a cyclic glucose structure. After converting into 3D, it shows it is a flat molecule, flat cyclic system. How can the 3D structure is a flat, especially for glucose? How can it be flat? For any molecule, there is no flat structure available in 3 dimensions. The 3D, 2D to 3D conversion programs, even in some of the commercially available software, I don't want to name now, but they are very popular software, but they are also making blunders. It is time, it is our job to pay attention. We have to look at the 3D structure of every molecule which we are going to work with. If we do not have that knack, that means we are trying to be lazy, and we are trying to introduce errors, and we are going to give wrong interpretation of the data. So allot a specific amount of time, maybe 1 week, or maybe 5 days, look at the 3D structures of every molecule and ensure that the 2D to 3D conversion is indeed successful as per the expectations of the chemical standards. If it is not maintaining that standard, if you are not patient enough in doing that, that means you are intentionally, I will blame that you are intentionally introducing errors. Okay, so I will be very upset with my students if they do not pay attention to that particular part. So exactly the same thing I want to give the message. You take time, you allot a specific amount of time to understand the 3 dimensional structures and remove all the possible errors. Okay. I hope this
Yeah,
helps.
I completely agree with you, Professor Bardhan, because this is also very much danger when we are trying to do 3D QSR. Most of us were earlier being reported also, they don't look at the 3D structure, what is being getting optimized, as you rightly pointed out. So it is something that everybody should be very cautious and take care while they're doing this exercise.
If I may add a small point which classically many people overlook is the hydrogen number of hydrogens and the presence of double bonds. A lot of softwares would invariably, perhaps if you look at the 3D structure, one should open the file in its text format and see that if a molecule is supposed to have a double bond, it is still remaining in the in the three-dimensional structure. They inherently sometimes one actually introduces hydrogen bond. So even if the molecule should have had a double bond, in the three-dimensional structure, it is already saturated with hydrogen, henceforth it's a single bond. So that's another very common mistake. And what Dr. Bartham said was absolutely true. Molecules coming out as planar, that's another thing. And molecules need to be randomized in its three-dimensional structure and minimized before introducing it for any kind of structural study.
Thank you, sir. That was the last question. So I would like to thank all the experts to address the questions. And on behalf of DDH training team and our director, Dr. G.N. Sastry, I thank all the experts available in this platform for sparing their valuable time to answer almost all the questions of DDH 2020 part of participants. I have one announcement for all the participants and listeners. For the next week, we'll be having many exciting talks, beginning with Dr. Berry Hardy, Dr. Madhavi Sastry, Dr. Indira Ghosh, Dr. Urmila, and many more. So I request all the participants, please attend all the lectures for the next week. Thank you once again, all the expert panel. We
Thank you.
will wind up the meeting here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
This is
sir.
important for the entire society.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Imanshi.
Thank you, sir.